I'm in love with cities I've never been to and people I've never met. Jack Kerouac didn't type those words, but I think he could have, and all in one sitting, as he was so used to doing, on that special typewriter with its long roll of paper, so he didn't have to be bothered with the nuisance of changing the pages. I think I could have written them too, because I am in love with cities. Today I could tell you about Seattle or Chicago or Boston or Brooklyn. But today I want to talk to you about San Francisco and my friend, Jack Kerouac. Jack and I first met in 2008, late at night, on Facebook. I took one of those stupid quizzes, what poet are you? And you can imagine the answer, right? And when I saw it, I was quietly pleased and intrigued, but I confess, my relationship with Jack to date had been one like secondhand smoke. It passes by and you get a little buzzed, but you didn't have to participate. And when it's all over, you really want to wash your clothes. I'm in love with cities. I was thinking those words just about a year ago today, standing in my driveway, my arms wrapped tightly around my middle daughter, Gabrielle. Gavy, as we call her, is beautiful and warm, and she thinks of a stranger simply as a friend that she's never met. I kissed her goodbye, and then I moved excitedly for the car. There was a journey ahead, adventure to be had. It was time for me, like Jack, to get on the road. I'm intrigued by cities. I absolutely love them. I love discovering the scents and the sounds, the bridges, the parks, the architectural thread woven through the fabric of the buildings. And cities and people are kind of the same. I don't know if you've ever noticed that, but cities have identities. We think of the Big Apple, the 518, the city by the bay. And cities have personality, have identities within those identities. San Francisco has its Chinatown, its North Beach, its Russia Hill. Each of these districts having their own unique stories, none completely true. And they have personalities too. We think of cities as warm or easy or gritty. And you might be thinking right now that I've just described the people. And you might be right, but it's my talk. More important than the personalities, however, is the potential for magic that exists in both. It's that thing inside that has to be discovered, and you have to take the time to discover it. San Francisco is definitely a magical city. I got up at 5 a.m. to walk through Chinatown, and again, to watch the sun rise over the ferry building on the Embarcadero. I even rode that bus, you know, the red open-top double-decker, ride all day, $34. It's a great way to see a new city. We wove through all of the districts. We crossed Haight and Ashbury and then straight through the Golden Gate Parkway. The smells of pine and eucalyptus in the ocean still in my memory today. And I rode 3 times across that bridge. The wind in my face, my hair destroyed, and my breath taken by the views of that city across the bay, through the cables of that amazing steel bridge with its long expanse. The bus turned onto the North Beach district, and my heart leapt just a little bit because North Beach is home to the Transamerica building. Transamerica is the most iconic building in the San Francisco skyline. I know you've seen it. It's this tall, slender pyramid that rises high over the city, and when it came into view, I was so disappointed. The building is a pipsqueak at 48 stories tall, a tiny tinker toy compared to the Empire State Building that rises 103. But serendipitously juxtaposition in front of it was the historic Sentinel Building, home to Francis Ford Coppola and his American Zoetrope Film Company. Zoetrope, as I like to think of it, is a 7-story frame wrapped in metal, and it's patinaed to that elegant copper color that happens after 100 years. Its entrance is an 8-story tower capped with a teapot lid. It was an emerald jewel in the city and one of the real treasures of the trip. I did everything you can imagine to do during my week in San Francisco. Well, not everything. But I did a lot, and the weather was perfect. My last evening, however, began with a disappointment. I walked out of my hotel room and into a light rain. And I thought, why on my last night? It took me a full minute to refocus. But when I did, it was suddenly perfect. I looked up, I ran across the street, I did my best to dodge the raindrops as I went, and I grabbed the cable car. And wide-eyed, we clanked down the street. Cable cars are rough and rickety and a little romantic, and they move swiftly, like a summer love. And I was fascinated, watching the ballet of these burly men as they pushed and pulled levers in perfect choreography with the markings on the street, hooking and unhooking, breaking and lurching, and all the while shouting out warnings as they waited for the next cable to drag them another quarter mile. I got off at the top of Lombard Street alone in the rain. Lombard is the curviest street in America, and I wanted to walk down it just to say I had. And I tell you, it's worth every step until you get to the end. What I didn't realize is that the end of Lombard is not the end of the hill. And the rest of that journey was straight and steep and wet. And I tripped and skidded all the way down in my treadless shoes until I hit the bottom, miserable and dripping. I was finally able to hail a cab, which is really to say, disappoint a cabbie, as I asked him to take me just a half mile to my next destination, the City Lights bookstore. City Lights is a wildly liberal place that's best known for countercultural literature and banned books and other things that my conservative friends may or may not approve of. But I wandered in anyway and down the stairs, ignoring the building code violations as I went, finding myself way in the back corner as I often do. And there, in front of me, I discovered a door, old and boldly painted with the words, "I am the door." There was nobody around, and I couldn't help myself. I peeked inside, and I expected to find God. But instead, I found an old coffee table, 4 chairs, and a bunch of junk. Disappointed, I went upstairs, and I wandered through the place. It's really fascinating. You should go. And I found myself once again in the far corner, but this time, I knew that I was onto something. Though the stenciling was lousy, the stairs themselves said, "Poet's Room." This is why I came. I bounded up the stairs, jumping onto the landing at the top, only to be disappointed again. There was a family there who had no intention of leaving anytime soon, and they didn't understand that this was my time. I had an appointment in this room with that corner, and they didn't care. I paced back and forth. I found the beat literature section. Allen Ginsberg, William Burroughs, Jack Kerouac. I ran my finger down the spine of the book on the road, and then I glared until they finally left. The corner was mine, and in it, a heavy wooden rocker gilded with the words, "Poet's Chair." And I had the audacity to sit in it as if I were Jack Kerouac. The only ones for me are the mad ones. The ones who are mad to live, mad to talk, mad to be saved, desirous of everything all at the same time, the ones who never yawn or say a commonplace thing, but burn, burn, burn like fabulous yellow Roman candles exploding like spiders across the stars. And in the middle, you see a blue center light pop, and everyone goes, "Oh." My audience of 0 was mesmerized. And I did the only thing a self-respecting middle-aged man can do. I snapped a selfie. and posted it on Facebook. Fully alive, I left City Lights and walked the short distance across the street to my bar. Its name clearly spelled out in white and black mosaic tiles, Vesuvio. I pushed the door open and confidently crossed the threshold. I was Jack Kerouac, and no one was surprised to see me. And I wanted to sit in that first chair right there and proclaim, I have nothing to offer anybody but my own confusion, but not yet comfortable in my new skin. Instead, I walked up the stairs and took the first table with a commanding view of the place. Vesuvio is a dark bar with 2 stories and a hole cut right through the middle of it. And from where I sat, I could see it all. A waitress came by and asked me for my order. Ginger ale, I said. She walked away. Wait, bourbon. Unfazed, she returned with my drink. And I spent the better part of that hour drying off from the still rain. And as I did, I took it all in. Jack Kerouac used to type on an unending roll of paper, so he didn't have to be bothered with that nuisance of changing pages. And my imagination became that page. Thoughts and feelings pounding like keys on the page in my brain. I was bigger than life and loving every minute of it. I pounded down the last of my bourbon as the hour waned on. I'm Jack Kerouac. Something happened between the last sip of bourbon and the last syllable of his name, and it hit me like a freight train. I'm not Jack Kerouac. Right now, Jack would be sitting in that first chair down there, drunk and boasting. I promise I will never give up, and I'll die yelling and laughing. And I realized in that moment, I really don't know Jack. The thought made me chuckle as I left content, the bourbon still burning in my throat. And I had the good fortune to have a cabbie who was a beatnik wannabe, complete with the beret and the goatee and something playing on the radio. And I had the time to take it all in, and about halfway home, something else hit me. Jack died a painful, lonely death, the result of a lifetime of alcohol abuse. Jack didn't die boasting and laughing. He died drunk, depressed, and alone. Jack didn't know Jack either. When I got home, I was different for the experience of San Francisco. And my daughter Gabrielle noticed immediately. I don't know if it was something in my smile or the twinkle of wanderlust still in my eyes, but she knew and she wanted to know. I embraced her again as I did when I left the city. And then I spoke directly into her deep brown eyes. Go to new cities and take time to experience them. Memories should be intentional, not contrived, but created. Become bigger than life. Breathe it in. Chase the ghosts. But when it's over, come home. Different, better, but most of all, content. Jack Kerouac never found what he was looking for on the road. But we don't have to make that same mistake. Most of the time, it's right here in front of us. If we just take time to discover it. Please take the time to discover it. Those were the words that I brought back primarily for my children. But I brought something back for you too. I met a ghost in San Francisco, and he gave me a snapping beat. And now I take that gift he gave to share with all I meet. Jack, my friend, he's a wily cat. He's something that I'd like to be. And now I've shared that gift with you, my friends, at TEDxAlbany. And now, thank you.